ayayere uyo uko kuno abo pano mamuona kere nice.
Right, 9 February 2022, and today I'm joined by my usual guest on Tuesdays, and today is Wednesday, Dr. Fedias Mteneri. How are you, Doctor?
I'm very well, Gambakwe. How are you? And very good evening to the viewers.
Okay, fantastic. So today let's quickly attack the topic that we have on hand. And what has happened is very surprising and very strange. Young people are refusing to register to vote. Ostalos was in Bulawayo last week, or in fact, he just left Bulawayo today, and I saw he was in Gweru. He is a very charismatic young man in the MDC or in the CCC, and he didn't manage to reach the target of registering 5 people a day. And journalists who were traveling around Bulawayo tried to find how many people are registering, and very few young people are registering. In fact, Zenzele and Ndebele said only 2 people registered over the weekend when they were going around Bulawayo. The ZEC officials are sitting around doing nothing because no one is coming to register. What is happening, Doctor?
Well, thank you very much for that question, Gambakwe. And the first thing probably I should highlight is that we are very, very, I mean, it's an opportune moment that ZEC has announced that they have started their blitz and that they are registering people around the country. And our hope is that they really execute their mandate impartially, with no favor or what have you. But again, you in your first statement, you seem to suggest that Ostalos he has not managed to register 5 people as he promised. Well, remember, Ostalos is not CCC, and CCC is not him. And if we were to try and assess whether people are registering on the bar or basis of what Ostalos managed to achieve in a day or the other, I think that is to miss a point. Secondly, registering of voters or young people is not only a citizens coalition for change duty. In fact, first and foremost, it is the duty of the state and those institutions such as ZEC that have been mandated to carry out those that task. Again, the national broadcaster is an awareness platform, but are they doing that? And again, the presumption from your question is that the opposition people who are trying to encourage and push the awareness agenda, their failure means that, or if they do not come up with 1 or 2, we are measuring them against what is a national campaign. I think it is wrong. But again, let me tell you another point of in which we can look at this is that the suggestion that new voters today will only be CCC, and therefore if there are none, therefore CCC is poised for a defeat, is again a very wrong assumption, because that assumption is based on the fact that those who voted, if they did, ZANU-PF in 2018 will still vote for ZANU-PF, again is wrong. This is a new political terrain altogether, a new opportunity for Zimbabweans to vote. And I think Zimbabweans have moved to that zone in which they are not just going to vote simply because they love a particular political party or they hate the other, but it is going to be based on the situation on the ground. And the situation on the ground today shows that things are going down south. No Zimbabwean is happy. ZANU-PF, CCC, they are both. They are, uh, actually facing the difficult and untenable situation which pertains in Zimbabwe today. And therefore, this vote cannot, I mean, I'm referring here to the question that we have, why are young Zimbabweans ignoring Chamisa? They are not. I think that question is a bit misplaced in that Nelson Chamisa and his new movement have not been in power, and but what we know of late is that whatever they are putting on the table is resonating with the generality and the majority of Zimbabweans, and registering to vote during this blitz cannot surely be judged or measured and come to a conclusion that young Zimbabweans are ignoring Chamisa. I think that is my view on your initial question, Gambako.
Okay, Doc, I think the question is straightforward, and you've said a lot. You've said it's not Chamisa's problem or Chamisa's duty to get people to come out to vote. He can do what he can, but if people don't want to come to register to vote, then it's up to them. But most of the work should be done by ZEC, should be done by ZBC, should be done by government agencies. I think on my side, what I would like to look at is, firstly, is the voter registration being politicized such that when people talk about registering to vote, it's almost as if they're saying register to vote, but you are registering to vote for a certain party. That is one thing that I'm seeing here. Everyone who is coming out, I was displaying some pictures here for you. All the celebrities who are coming out, they're saying, so take for example, Jackie, she just posted here, register to vote, CCC Women's League, Njuzu, register to vote, vote Chamisa, Susan, same thing. Yesterday she was saying vote, register to vote for Chamisa. Basically, everyone who's coming out is saying register to vote, but vote for a particular party. I think that is something that I've picked up. I don't know if it's wrong or not, or if it's wrong or right, but I don't know if maybe people could just say register to vote without having to then say register to vote so that your things can change, so that Mkomana can get in. I saw that as a very important development or observation that I saw. And then I also realized that young people, especially in the latest ones in universities, they've got no interest in politics. Totally. Like when you saw Ostalos in Bulawayo, he had basically 4 people or 4 students around him. Similarly in Gweru, there are very few young people who are in politics. It's not as vibrant as before, where youngsters were driving politics. And I could attribute this to the nature of the MDC and the CCC, that the people that are there, they are not new. So there's nothing new coming out of the CCC. The same candidates who were there in the past, they are the same ones who are contesting, same candidates who have been contesting for the past 20 years. They are the same candidates who are there. So young people are disenchanted with the new political party. It's now, they see it is more about the politician than about change. So not really much is going to change from this current set of politicians that we've got. I think those are the key points that I picked up from what I'm observing. What do you think, Doc? Do you have any comments to make on this?
Okay, quite interesting observations from your side. But one thing I would want to highlight, Gambakwe, to bring this discussion to order, because I think this discussion will need to be brought to order, is that whatever is happening in Zimbabwe obviously shows how divided our nation is. And it is the duty of the public administrators in Zimbabwe to deal with that, number one. Number two, I think that division is also shown between the two major, and I underline that, two major protagonists in the Zimbabwean body politic. And those two are, on one side, the ZANU-PF government, and on the other side, the citizen convergence for change led by Nelson Chamisa. There is no doubt about that. So when you go to Twitter, when you go to Facebook, when you go to your social media, obviously you encounter those two competing groups, inviting or encouraging people to go and vote. And they do that, of course, wearing their different regalia, their different, symbols of where they are observed. But again, what I was telling you, Gambakwe, is that then whether you see the young man Ostalos having 3 people or 2 people, even if you could say one around him in a picture that one has, taken, you cannot then judge that that is the environment out there. Still pictures, I mean, for those who are, history students who do commentary and analysis on sources, if you are given a picture of Ostalos with 3 people and he's saying, I am on a campaign for people to register to vote, and you want to say those 3 people mean that he did nothing the whole 24 hours. I mean, there are many analyses that can come out there. That cannot be a measure of whether he failed or he didn't fail. But again, it falls into the same trap within even our commentary on media, to think that a successful campaign is when there is a huge crowd. All right. There are what we call door-to-door campaigns, and probably from what I saw on Ostalos' Twitter, he was going probably to university students, to here and there, probably, I don't know, maybe door-to-door. And you don't expect on a door-to-door to see him with a huge crowd. What he is going through is not a city campaign, is not a city rally. So one can then say he was successful as long as he had 1 or 2. And remember, this is not an event. The registration of new voters is not going to be an event, but it is a process. It is a process which is, for me, going to lead to 2023. And we have said 26 March is just a test. It's a litmus test of these two parties. But again, Gambakwe, remember, I don't want us to judge the CCC and say they are being ignored. There is no way they are ignored, because right now I see you are being noted. There are some pictures you are showing there. Anyway, I've seen videos. I've seen videos of the citizens' convergence in Kwekwe, in Marondera, in Gweru, where there are tens and tens and at times hundreds and hundreds of supporters who are wearing their regalia, and they seem to be, I mean, very, 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 very happy there. And you are not showing those. So basically, the pictures that come out of Zimbabwe are not necessarily a scale or a bar in which we can measure whether Chamisa is being successful. But you asked an important question. Sorry, Gambakwe, I have to, I think, to respond to that. Actually, you said something in relation to whether it is the ZEC alone that has to carry out this. I didn't say it is only ZEC. ZEC, yes, is the institution that is mandated to do that. And political parties are as well free to do it. And as they are doing it, we shall see what will be the outcome at the end of the day. Gambakwe, I've lost you. I've lost your sound. I've lost.
Okay, sorry,
sound.
Doc. Sorry about that. I think let's bring this to an end. This is a factual matter. Young people are not registering to vote. Chamisa knows it. ZANU-PF knows it. In general.
But Gambakwe, whose figures are we basing that on? Whose figures show us that young people are not registering to vote? We have seen very contested figures that ZEC brought out about some few weeks back, in which other organizations that have been doing voter registration contested and said, in fact, we have registered more voters than what are being reported by ZEC. And yes, Gambakwe, I think, as you mentioned earlier, we might as well see that ZEC, as they have been accused, might probably be suppressing some of these, I mean, the figures of the real registration for particular purposes. And we know those purposes are to probably lead us into, what we have always known, that they try to rig these elections by suppressing numbers, or by not telling us the real truth, or actually by not really doing what they are supposed to do, which is to register anybody despite where they are coming from. And remember, we have a crisis, Gambakwe, whether it's Makombe House or the Department of Registration of IDs. Young people who want to come out and register to vote are not accessing their basic requirement, their basic right of having a registration card. And how do you expect to see new voters if the very many new voters who do not have IDs are not getting those IDs, and IDs and a requirement for them to register? So let's look at that as we make our analysis. Yes, Kambako.
Okay, Doc. I think my last word before I give you a chance to close is that the MDC and the CCC, they tend to put out a lot of conspiracy theories. And I think it's also discrediting the registration process and making people think that voting is useless. So, for example, what I saw an audio circulating that people are registering using ZANU-PF cards. That's an obvious lie. And then the issue that you are raising of IDs, it's not true that IDs are not being given. IDs are being given, but the number of people that are registering is very low. And this is something that we need to attend to, not with an accusation on ZEC. And I think the political parties, they need to take this seriously. If Zenzele Ndebele went around Bulawayo and found 2 people the whole day, it's not something that you can take as a ZEC problem. It's a problem within the general population of Bulawayo. And I'm sure if you go to Harare, you'll find a similar situation. People don't take voting seriously. They think it's a useless exercise. And this will reflect in the 2023 elections. I don't think Chamisa will get the same numbers that he got in 2018. And of course, we're going to see within the next month and a half, we're going to see how the by-elections happen. You saw what happened in previous by-elections. Very few people voted. In one case, less than 100 people voted in one constituency, if you check the by-elections that occurred soon after the elections, which the MDC alliance of Chamisa lost because of the low numbers. So let's see what happens. But I want to give you a chance to close, Doc. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
Of course, I will have to say something, and particularly in response to what you are saying, that, I mean, there are aspects that I agree with you. For instance, that there's always been voter apathy in our country, in Zimbabwe. Voter apathy as a result of lack of faith in the electoral process itself, as to whether there could be change, or change can ever come through electioneering. And yes, that is an issue that has to be dealt with, not only by the citizens who really who people are putting hope on to win. It's not only their problem, but they, like we have said in previous programs, they definitely have to pull something out of their sleeves. They have to mount a very, very unprecedented, I've said, a campaign in which they have to do anything and everything, I mean, of course, within the constitutional lines, in order to make sure that people come out to register to vote, and they come out to vote on voting day, and they defend their vote after the vote. That there is no question. But again, it is the problem of the government, that a government that has always come out and said, we are open for business, that the voice of the people, particularly they say the voice of the people is the voice of God, but they are not affording people that voice. We do not see ZBC, educating people about the importance to vote. We do not see ZEC itself coming out strongly to educate people to vote, and telling people that it is their right, because if they vote, they then participate in the running of their country. We don't see them doing that. Instead, what we see is that, in fact, it's not the MDC, rather the CCC, that is bringing out conspiracies. Those conspiracies come out more from ZANU-PF, which knows that a successful voter registration would mean new voters, and new voters who are likely, and I underline that, likely to vote against them. And they would not like a very successful voter registration. But in closing, as you have asked me, I would only say to Zimbabweans out there, those within Zimbabwe and in the diaspora, where we can, let's go out and vote. It's our basic right. And we are at a cusp. We are at a moment in which we can determine the running of our country. We can make the change that we want. And sometimes at the end of the day, after the election, we get the leaders that we deserve. If we do not do the needful, if we do not participate vigorously in the processes that are beyond us. But Gambakwe, again, I should highlight and say the pictures and the reports we got from Gweru in the past week are not a good sign for even those who would want to come out and vote. We saw various, in fact, congregations, if you like, of riot police coming around the CCC supporters. But we have not seen that around the ZANU-PF people who are doing their campaigns. In fact, I was listening this afternoon to Chris Mutrangwa talking about what he is saying is going to be a huge ZANU-PF campaign in urban areas. And they say this authoritatively, knowing that that is not going to be disturbed by whosoever. I wish that can be afforded to the CCC, so that we have a very competitive election. ZANU-PF should stop looking at the opposition as an enemy, but it is needed because it brings a check on their excesses. So there is need for a transformation and a change in the way ZANU-PF the ZANU-PF, particularly government, looks at this. And I think the CCC is doing well in trying to conscientize the majority of Zimbabweans, the generality of Zimbabweans, to go out and vote. And to just finish up, I think the question that Chamisa and the CCC are being ignored by the youth is false, is not true. And again, this is going to be a process, and at the end we shall see the result. However, the CCC should be advised or should be encouraged to continue, if they envisage a change, to continue doing what they are doing and do even much more. Thank you very much, Gambakwe, for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doc. And I really enjoyed talking to you. We'll see what happens. And I will try to be in Zim for these elections, for these important events. And let's see what happens. This is an important matter. It's not even about CCC. It's not about ZANU-PF. It's about the future. People are probably looking at politics differently, as you said. And I hope that this situation improves, whatever the reasons that people are using for not registering.
True. There are, in Zimbabwe, like I've said, there is apathy as a result of our history, because right now there is that thinking that would elections ever change things in Zimbabwe. There are even analysts of note who have also come out to cast doubt. But Zambia, across the border, gives us hope that any change can happen. But for Zimbabwe, it's difficult, because for the past 41, 42 years, we've been stuck with one liberation struggle, liberation party, liberation government, which always revert to those liberation credentials when faced with an election, which revert to violence when faced with an election, which revert back to the security sector to defend them when they are facing, and all that, leads to the apathy that we see in Zimbabwe. But again, we do not know the real figures. We do not know exactly, the real statistics of who is registering and who is not. And probably, if we can have access to the voters' roll well before the election, first before the by-election and before the harmonized election next year, we might be able to tell. And apathy in Zimbabwe, it can be considered as real and unreal, both. Because unreal, because we don't know the figures if they are not cooked, or if they are cooked. Real, because there are various issues that actually give people doubt to go and do the actual voting. So Gambakwe, it's
right.
We are between a rock and a hard place.
All right, thank you very much, Doc. And I think let's bring this to an end. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you very much, Gambakwe. Have a very good night.
Uko kuno